The silence of the past. There are stories the world remembers. And there are stories the world was forced to forget. Stories buried under layers of lies, fear, and divine manipulation. But among those forgotten legends, one name still echoes through the whispers of the sea. Rox D. Xebec. A man erased from history. A name forbidden to be spoken. A will too dangerous to be remembered. For centuries, the world government crafted a perfect illusion that peace was maintained by their wisdom. That order was preserved by their justice, and that the chaos of the old world was vanquished by their holy light. But that light was never divine. It was the burning flame of censorship, consuming every trace of truth, and Xebec was the spark that almost reignited the fire. He was not like the pirates who came after him. He did not chase treasure for greed or glory. He sought answers, the kind that only gods and devils dared to touch. He wanted to understand why some men were born free, while others were born to kneel. Every pirate who joined his crew thought he wanted the world. They believed he was a tyrant, obsessed with power. But Xebec's ambition was far more dangerous. He did not want to rule the world. He wanted to free it, and that was his greatest crime. While others saw the seas as a stage for their dreams, Xebec saw them as a prison, built by the hands of those who called themselves divine. He began to investigate the origin of the devil fruits, questioning why their power seemed so unnatural, so ancient, as if they were remnants of an age when men could stand among gods. And that was when he found it, the truth buried in the shadow of the Void Century, a truth that could destroy the very foundation of the world government. Among all the fruits scattered across the Grand Line, there was one that even the celestial dragons feared. A fruit they had tried to erase from existence. A fruit that was never meant to fall into mortal hands. The Hito Hito no Mi, model, Nika, the fruit of the sun, the embodiment of laughter, freedom, and divine rebellion. But the government called it a myth, a story told to children, because if the world knew that a power existed capable of mocking even the gods, then fear, their greatest weapon, would lose its power, and so they hid it. For centuries, locked away, guarded by the highest order of the Gorosei, and whispered about only in the deepest chambers of Mary Joieuse. But fate has a strange sense of irony. For it was a pirate, not a god, who found the traces of that forbidden truth. A man whose very blood carried the letter D, and whose heart beat with the rhythm of defiance. Rox D. Xebec discovered that the so-called peace of the world was built upon lies, that the Void Century was not an age of ignorance, but an age of freedom, erased because it revealed that humanity once lived without the rule of the so-called divine. And at the center of it all was the power of the sun god. The Hito Hito no Mi was not just a fruit. It was a symbol, a key forged by ancient hands to awaken humanity from its chains. And the world government's true purpose was to make sure it never returned. But Xebec, he decided to change that. He began assembling a crew unlike any other. A gathering of monsters and legends, Kaido, Big Mom, Whitebeard, Shiki, the most powerful pirates in history, bound not by loyalty but by chaos itself. But even they didn't understand what Xebec truly sought. They thought he wanted to overthrow the celestial dragons. They thought he wanted to become the new king of the world. But no. Xebec didn't want a throne. He wanted to burn it. He wanted to tear open the veil of lies that covered the world, to expose the gods as frauds, to remind humanity what freedom truly was, and the key to it all was that fruit. He had learned through stolen archives that the government planned to move the Hito Hito no Mi during a secret ceremony in a place called God Valley, a location that did not appear on any map. A sacred island where the celestial dragons held their darkest rituals. That was the moment Xebec decided to strike. Not for gold, not for power, but to steal the light that the gods had hidden from mankind. He gathered his fleet, and the world's greatest battle was set into motion, one that history would later call the God Valley Incident. But the truth behind that battle was never told, because if it were, the very idea of justice would crumble. The world government called it a battle against evil. They painted Xebec as a monster, a tyrant, a demon of chaos. But in reality, he was the first man in centuries to stand against the heavens themselves. The day God Valley burned was the day the world almost learned the truth. But victory never came. because as the smoke rose, Zebek was betrayed, not by his enemies, but by those who feared the storm he had unleashed. Some say it was his own crew. Others whisper that the government offered a deal too powerful to resist. But whatever the truth was, the result was the same. The man who challenged the gods vanished, or so they made the world believe. When the battle ended, the name Rox D. Zebek was erased from every record. His bounty was deleted, his island sunk, his followers scattered, and those who still remembered him were silenced one by one, but the ocean never forgets. The sea carries memories that no god can drown, and deep within its whispers, the name Zebek still resonates, not as a monster, but as a warning. Because some say that before his final breath, Zebek left behind a prophecy. He told his crew that the world would one day be torn between two forces, the sun and the darkness. That the ones who carry the D would be the storm to decide which one would rule. He believed that the Hito Hito no Mi, the fruit of the sun, and his own will, the will of darkness, were destined to collide. That only through that clash would humanity find its truth. He did not seek eternal life. He sought eternal meaning. To become the chaos that would one day awaken the world again. And that is why the world government feared him more than anyone before or after. Because he was not trying to be a god. He was trying to kill them. The world calls him evil, but evil is only a label written by those who win. And history, as they say, is written by the survivors, not the righteous. Yet somewhere out there on a distant island, a boy once laughed at the sky. His name was Monkey D. Luffy, and the fruit he ate, the fruit that gave him the power of laughter, was the same fruit that Zebek had once tried to steal from the gods. Fate had chosen its new bearer. And though the world had forgotten Rox D. Zebek, his will, that burning desire to tear down the heavens, was reborn. Because history doesn't die. It only sleeps. And when the storm returns, the world will remember the man who almost changed everything. The man whose name they tried to erase, but whose echo still haunts the waves. Rox D. Zebek, the man who discovered the secret of the gods and was buried for daring to speak it. The sea forgets no name, and when the sun rises again, the gods shall tremble. Unknown inscription found on a ruined tablet in God Valley, the secret of the gods. There are truths that cannot be spoken in sunlight, truths that live only in the whisper of torches, down marble corridors, beneath a ceiling of gilded stars that never see the dawn. In that place where the floor is polished with the weight of centuries and the air tastes like incense, and iron, men who call themselves gods make decisions that shape the lives of everyone who will never know their names. Mary. Joes, if you listen closely, you can hear it. Not the music of heaven, but the grinding of gears. A machine older than any kingdom, fed by centuries of fear, powered by a single commandment. Erase what threatens us. At the center of that machine sits a throne that should be empty. A throne that history calls the empty throne, to convince the world that no one rules above kings. But the throne is not empty. It is occupied by a will older than any constitution, older than any law, older than any war. A will that does not speak loudly, not because it is weak, but because it has never needed to raise its voice. Imu. The name is never carved, never written, never sung. It is breathed. And the moment it is breathed, those who speak it learn to be silent forever. Beside that hidden sovereign stand the stewards of concealment, the Gorosei, the 5 elders, men whose blades are polished by prayer and whose prayers are sharpened by blades. They do not seek victory on the battlefield. They ensure that there are never battles to begin with, only corrections. Corrections to history, corrections to memory, corrections to reality. But even gods, false or otherwise, must fear something, and what the gods fear most is laughter. Not the laughter of mockery or insult or madness, but the laughter that cannot be chained. The laughter that rings like a bell across the sea, that dances on the gallows, that shines even in the jaws of death. A laughter that does not deny pain, but transcends it. A laughter that tells every slave, "You were free before they taught you to kneel." In a vault beneath the earth, beyond doors that do not exist on any map, a single page from a book that does not exist in any library lies sealed in glass. The calligraphy is ancient. The ink is the color of old sunsets. And the script speaks of a fruit that is not a fruit, a choice that is not a choice, a smile that is not a smile. Hito Hito no Mi, model Nika. The elders do not say its name. They refer to it as a classification, a containment unit, a security concern. They call it a myth in public and a weaponized anomaly in private. They cannot afford the truth that the fruit is not merely power, but permission. Permission for the human spirit to behave the way it was designed, ungoverned. Long before the world government raised its flag, before the clan of D was turned into a superstition, there was a pact. Not a treaty signed by kings, but an agreement carved into the marrow of the world that the sun would belong to everyone. That laughter would be the proof of freedom. That joy would be the signature of the living. But pacts are notoriously fragile things. And men who thirst for permanence hate anything they cannot possess. So they built palaces that touched the sky. They forged laws that strangled the sea. And when those laws were not enough, they tried to own the sun. You cannot own the sun. You can hide it. You can cloud it. You can rename it. But you cannot own it. And yet, through centuries of slaughter and scriptural revisions, they nearly succeeded. They forced the fruit to vanish from charts and myths. They turned the bearer of that power into a jester in the fables, a figure to be laughed at, not with. They buried the word Nika under layers of polite theology and legal dust. They transformed a hymn into a warning, but fate has no respect for paperwork because the fruit is not an object to be cataloged. It is a presence, a migrating miracle, drawn to those who dare to laugh in chains. Not a tool for the ambitious, but a companion for the unbreakable. It moves where the will moves, and the will moves where freedom breathes. This is the secret the world government never dared to speak. The fruit does not belong to the one who finds it. It chooses the one who remembers how to smile when smiling is forbidden. And so, what did the gods do? They tried to trap it like a storm in a box. They designed routes under darkness, guarded by knights in white, escorted by ships that left no wakes. They held ceremonies with no witnesses, stamped by seals with no heraldry, sung by choirs with no mouths. For centuries, the fruit was transferred, delayed, misplaced, recovered, recatalogued, and hidden again. An endless dance designed to make sure it never met the one who could wake it. And then came a rumor that slithered through taverns and temples alike, that somewhere far from courtly eyes, a pirate with a name sharp enough to cut the silence had learned the truth. A man who did not fear gods because he refused to call them gods. A man who knew that the greatest rebellion is not to shout, but to laugh in the presence of those who forbid laughter. Rox D. Zebek. The elders scoffed at first. What can a pirate do that armies cannot? But the throne did not scoff. It listened. Zebek had learned enough to make their knees remember how to bend. He learned that the fruit would be moved, not because it needed to be, but because ritual itself is a prison. He learned that the chosen route would pass near a stage built of arrogance and old blood, God Valley. And he learned that the government's greatest shield was not the admirals, nor the cipher pole, nor the walls of Mary Joaz. It was the lie that no one would dare to interrupt the will of the divine. He dared. But let us step behind the veil, into the chamber beneath the chamber, where sacred lamps burn on oil wrung from the bones of forgotten kings. There, Imu watched the map. A hand, pale, uncalloused, without the history of labor, moved a silver pin across the ocean's blue silk. There is no surprise in that gesture. There is only maintenance. The elders spoke in a language without verbs where nothing ever happens, things only are. Containment. Correction. Continuity. It is a clever language. It allows those who speak it to do anything without the burden of calling it action. One of them, his sword longer than most men's lives, whispered the word that most terrifies the carefully balanced. D, not a letter. A storm with a surname. A variable that ruins every equation. Imu did not answer. The throne never answers. It merely is. They would let the fruit be moved. They would let the ceremony proceed. They would let Zebek come. And then they would make the world forget that any of it had ever occurred. That is the oldest trick of divinity. Not victory, but editing. And yet, for all their scripts and seals, the one thing they could not edit, could never edit, was the will that haunted their sleep. Because will is not a document. Will is not a law. Will is not a treaty or a title. Will is not even a body. It is the memory of the future, alive within the soul of those who laugh. Zebek understood this perfectly. He did not need to seize the world. He only needed to unlock it. The day God Valley bled into the sea, it was not simply a clash of pirates and marines, nor a spectacle staged for celestial entertainment. It was an audit, the most terrifying word any empire can hear. An audit of the very idea of rule, of whether power exists to protect the living or to preserve the powerful. Zebek did not arrive with sermons. He arrived with a proposition. If the gods own the sun, then let the sun answer for itself. But the government had planned for a different ending. They calculated with abacuses of sacrifice and probability. If Zebek falls, the legend dies. If the fruit is relocated, the laughter sleeps. If the records burn, the future forgets. Calculations are soothing things. They tell you that the ocean can be counted, but the ocean cannot be counted. And so even when Zebek's ship cracked under cannon fire, even when the sky roared with the iron syllables of war, something refused to yield. Because behind the roar, beyond the smoke, between the moments history would later redact, an exchange took place, not of objects, but of wills. Some say Zebek touched the fruit. Others swear he only touched the truth of it. Some say he failed to claim it. Others say he never intended to. But all the stories, no matter how the elders corrupt them, share a spine, that the sun was not where it was supposed to be when the smoke cleared. And the throne, oh, the throne, remained calm. Because thrones are patient. Because empires can wait centuries for corrections that cost them only decades. Because they believed, truly believed, that they could outlast laughter. They could not. Years later, in a place unworthy of legends, a boy ate a fruit that had spent centuries being treated like contraband by heaven. He did not read a prophecy. He did not deliver a speech. He laughed, and the sun woke up. That is the secret the gods could not bury. You do not grant freedom. Freedom is not a document that can be notarized by kings. It is an eruption, always waiting beneath the crust, always moving toward light. You can reroute it, delay it, rename it, but you cannot own it. Imu learned that lesson the only way the immortal ever learns anything, by witnessing the one thing immortality cannot stop: return. The fruit returns. The will returns. The laughter returns. And with it returns the letter that every ledger fears. But the story of the god's secret is not complete without the shadow that grew when the sun re-emerged. Because Zebek, who stared straight into divinity and did not blink, saw a truth that even his allies could not endure: that the world would not be healed by light alone. It would have to choose it, and to choose light, it would first have to taste darkness. So while the government tried to confiscate the sun, Zebek set into motion a second, unsanctioned ritual. One not written in the archives, not approved by the elders, not witnessed by the throne. He prepared a counterweight. If laughter is the signature of the living, then shadows are the ink that makes the signature visible. He would not crown a king. He would seed a dilemma. He would leave behind a will capable of devouring everything that did not belong to it, a gravity so black that even light would have to fight to escape. He did not call it destiny. He called it proof. Proof that when the sun finally rose, it would not be by convenience or accident, but by choice. And thus the stage was set for an age the elders could not calculate, and the throne could not edit, an era where the sun and the darkness would meet not by mistake, but by design. Not the government's design, not the gods, not even Zebek's, but by the design of will, that persistent wind the sea uses to write its own history. That is the secret of the gods. Not that they are powerful, but that they are afraid of anything that cannot be owned, cannot be signed, cannot be corrected. Afraid of a fruit that laughs, of a boy who smiles, of a letter that refuses to disappear. Afraid, most of all, of what Zebek understood better than any pirate or prince. If the sun belongs to everyone, then no one can be a god. And somewhere, in a port that has no name, a man whose body bears more nights than days turns his face to the sky and does not smile. He does not need to. The darkness he carries smiles for him, but that belongs to the next chapter, the fruit of the sun and the curse of darkness. They say light creates the world, but they never tell you that light also casts the shadow. After God Valley, silence reigned. The seas calmed, the reports were rewritten, and the historians received new ink. But beneath that stillness, something vast was moving. Not in the waves, but in the will that survives drowning. Rox D. Zebek had failed, they said. The gods had won, they said. Yet the gods could not sleep, because victory means nothing when the question you tried to bury keeps whispering your name, and that whisper was this: if the sun can never be owned. Then what of the darkness that always follows it? Zebek had seen both. He had stared into the face of divine radiance and found it hollow. He had tasted the laughter of the sun god and realized that laughter alone could not rebuild a world addicted to chains. For every heart that danced in light, another heart, twisted by centuries of obedience, feared it. He understood what the elders never could. Balance is not peace. It is the collision of opposites refusing to disappear. That is why, in the final moments before the sky swallowed his ship, Zebek smiled. Because while the government fought to erase him, he had already written his final equation in blood and prophecy. The world will be judged by what it chooses when the sun meets the night. He did not mean metaphor. He meant inheritance. The Hito Hito no Mi, his impossible target, the living embodiment of the sun, had escaped his grasp. But Zebek was not a man who needed possession to feel victory. He was a strategist who knew that ideas are far harder to kill than bodies. If the gods kept the sun, then he would birth the darkness, not a metaphorical darkness, but a power to mirror and mock the light. A void capable of consuming even the laughter of Nika should the world grow arrogant again. He saw the pattern in the sea's heartbeat. Every age of light begets an age of shadow, and he would make sure that the next shadow carried his name. So he prepared a second fruit, a fruit not created by the gods but by defiance itself. Through rituals lost to the void century, through whispers stolen from forbidden islands, he summoned a force the scholars of today would one day call the Yami Yami no Mi, the fruit of darkness. Not crafted, born. A convergence of despair, rage, and clarity. A fruit that did not give power, it took it. He poured into it what the sun could not contain. His hatred, his wisdom, and his understanding that freedom without struggle becomes another kind of prison. And with that act, he gave birth to the counterweight of the universe, the darkness that would one day demand the world to choose. Before he vanished, he wrote a single line inside an iron box sealed by tides. One day, the world will face itself in the mirror. The sun will laugh. The darkness will answer. Centuries later, that answer would have a name. Marshall D. Teach, the man who does not sleep. The man who carries two souls. The man whose body is a contradiction. The only being capable of bearing more than one will, more than one fruit, more than one destiny. People call it anomaly. They are wrong. It is inheritance. The Zebek's essence did not die at God Valley. It migrated, like a storm waiting for a new sky. And when Teach found the Yami Yami no Mi, it was not a coincidence. The darkness had been waiting for him. Teach did not find the fruit. The fruit found him, because deep inside his laughter, deeper than greed, deeper than ambition, there was something familiar. A void that wanted not to destroy the world, but to force it to reveal itself. He was not born wicked. He was born incomplete. Incomplete, because the darkness always seeks the light, and so the prophecy moved forward. The sun would rise again through another D, a boy whose laughter could shake the sea itself. And the darkness would awaken through a man who devoured everything he touched, even hope. They would never share the same path, yet their footsteps would rhyme across eras. Both chosen by the sea, both unafraid of gods, both branded with the letter the world feared most. D. The government does not understand this. They think the letter is lineage. It is not. It is weather, a climate of will that brings the inevitable, the storm, because the D are not a family. They are a forecast, and when that forecast reaches its climax, the heavens themselves will shake. The sun will blaze, the darkness will devour, and humanity will remember what it means to choose. Not obedience, not control, but choice. That was Zebek's real dream. Not domination, but decision. He did not want a world without gods. He wanted a world that no longer needed them. He looked at the fruit of the sun and smiled, then looked at the fruit of the darkness and whispered. When these two laugh together, the sea will learn to sing again. Even now, the waves repeat that melody in secret tones only the D can hear. It is not a lullaby. It is a countdown. because one carries the laughter of dawn, and the other carries the hunger of night, and between them lies the destiny of every soul that has ever looked at the horizon and asked, "What if I were free?" The world thinks of Xebec as chaos, but chaos is not destruction. It is revelation. He revealed that the gods were not immortal. He revealed that darkness could be sacred, and he revealed that freedom means nothing until it faces fear and survives. That is why his legend cannot be erased, because it is no longer ink, it is equilibrium. When the sun and the darkness finally meet, it will not be a war of light and shadow. It will be recognition, the universe realizing that both have always been parts of the same whole. And when that happens, the D will no longer be a mystery, nor a threat, nor a curse. They will be the answer to a question the gods were too afraid to ask, the chosen of the shadows. Every light that rises casts a shadow that refuses to disappear. And sometimes, that shadow learns to laugh back. The world remembers the name Marshall D. Teach as a pirate, a traitor, a monster. But the world, as always, remembers only what it is told. It never listens to the silence that follows the cannon fire. It never asks why the sea chose him, because Teach was not born of coincidence. He was born of intention, the intention of a man whose body perished at God Valley but whose will refused to sink. The day Rox D. Xebec vanished, something else was born in his place, and a pulse, an echo, a vibration that lingered in the deepest current of the Grand Line. An idea that could not drown. A fragment of consciousness bound to the darkness itself. For years it drifted, unseen, unheard, waiting for the one who could bear the weight of its hunger. Most men would have been torn apart by it. Most souls would have shattered trying to contain the void. But one man carried within him a space wide enough to house it, a body too strange to be natural, a will too stubborn to die. That man was Teach. People call him abnormal. They say he never sleeps. They say his body is different, his spirit divided, his very being an impossibility. But they never ask what it means. Because if they did, they would realize the truth. He does not have two bodies. He carries two wills. When Teach found the Yami Yami no Mi, he did not find power. He found recognition. The fruit did not resist him. It greeted him like a memory returning home. Because inside that swirling blackness lived a whisper of the man who once defied the gods. Rox D. Xebec. He did not inherit Xebec's memories. He inherited his question. The same question that haunted the gods, the same one that split the sky at God Valley. What happens when freedom meets fear? And refuses to bow? Teach became the living continuation of that question. His darkness was not the absence of light. It was the presence of everything the light tried to erase: anger, grief, greed, longing, ambition, contradiction. All the things that make a man human. That is why his power devours. It does not destroy for cruelty's sake. It reclaims. He takes back everything that was stolen from the world by divine censorship. When he smiles, it is not joy. It is defiance. It is the echo of Xebec's laughter, warped through centuries of waiting. The laugh of someone who knows that even if the sun shines again, the night will always come. And that is balance. The elders at Mary Joyce do not understand him. They see a pirate. They see chaos. But what they are truly seeing is their own reflection. The shadow of every sin they buried, now wearing a human face. A man who cannot die because he was never truly born in their world. A man who exists outside their narrative. When Xebec created the darkness, he understood something the gods did not. Light can only be worshipped when it has a rival. Without shadow, light becomes tyranny. And so he designed the future as a paradox. He ensured that when the next sun rose, it would face a darkness it could not ignore. And now in Teach, that prophecy breathes. He is not the villain. He is the response, the necessary consequence of divine arrogance. Because even Luffy, the embodiment of the sun, cannot exist without him. One represents the laughter that liberates, the other, the hunger that reveals. Together, they complete the circle of human will. You see, the D are not chosen by destiny. They are chosen by contrast. Each one is born when the world leans too far towards silence. They are the storm's correction, the thunder that reminds creation that perfection is a lie. That is why Teach's body can hold multiple souls. Because he is not one man. He is an assembly, a meeting place of wills, an archive of everything the gods tried to discard. His darkness is not evil. It is memory, and in that memory, Xebec's will still lives, whispering to him across every starless night, "Do not destroy the world. Make it look at itself." That is why Teach does not seek conquest through ideology. He does not preach. He does not explain. He acts. Every island he touches, every empire he topples, every soul he absorbs, they all become witnesses to a truth too raw to speak, that no throne, no God, no system of order can survive once people see the world's contradictions clearly. Because when you hold the darkness long enough, it starts showing you not what you hate, but what you hide. That is the curse of the Yami Yami no Mi, and its gift. It devours everything, yes, but only to show what remains when nothing can be hidden. And in that honesty lies freedom. Teach is not the enemy of Luffy's laughter. He is its mirror. While Luffy represents freedom's joy, Teach represents freedom's cost. Luffy breaks the chains. Teach collects the pieces, and the gods, they fear both. Because one laughs at them, and the other remembers them. Soon, the world will learn that this story was never about good or evil, right or wrong, hero or villain. It was about will. The will to exist outside the script of divinity. The will to look at the sun and say, "I am not blinded." The will to look at the darkness and say, "I am not afraid." That is why Teach carries the D. Not because he was born to it, but because he earned it. Because to carry the darkness and still move forward requires a courage that even gods envy. He is the night that proves dawn still matters. He is the hunger that makes laughter meaningful. He is the shadow that makes light sacred. He is the continuation of Rox Dizebek's question. The proof that even when you erase a man, you cannot erase the idea he planted in the world's heart. So when the sun rises again, as it always does, and the darkness stretches across the sea to greet it, do not call it war, call it recognition. Because in that collision, the world will finally see itself for what it truly is, a dream built on contradiction, a storm made of choice, a harmony between laughter and silence. And when that storm begins, the D will awaken once more, and not as enemies, but as the two sides of the same truth. The sun smiles, the darkness grins, and the gods finally tremble. The legacy of the storm. Every prophecy eventually finds its storm, and every storm carries within it the truth that the sky tried to forget. For centuries, the world has existed inside an illusion, a perfect cage painted to look like freedom. The celestial dragons call it peace. The Gorosei call it balance. But the sea has another name for it, delay. A pause before the inevitable, a silence before the roar, and that roar is coming. It was never about pirates versus marines. It was never about the bounty posters, the ships, or the wars. It was about the will behind it all, the invisible pulse that lives in every man who dares to question. The letter that the gods tried to erase. The D, are not descendants. They are not chosen. They are storms, born when the world forgets how to move forward. Each one appears when stagnation grows unbearable, when the gods start believing their lies. They are the correction written into existence itself. And now, that correction is almost here, because the two ends of the prophecy have finally awakened. The sun has found its laughter. The darkness has found its hunger. And the sea trembles between them. The sun, Luffy, he is not a warrior. He is not a politician. He is not even a conqueror. He is the most dangerous thing in the universe, a man who believes that joy is sacred. Monkey D. Luffy is not Nika reborn. He is humanity remembering what Nika meant. The freedom to live without explanation, the audacity to smile at injustice, the rebellion of happiness against a world that profits from despair. His laughter is not ignorance, it is resistance. When he grins at an enemy, it is not mockery, it is mercy. Because he knows that those who have forgotten how to laugh have already lost. He carries the light that Rox Dizebek once sought to steal, the flame the gods buried, believing it would never rise again. But Luffy's fire does not burn, it warms. He fights not to rule the sea, but to remind it that the sea belongs to everyone. He is the sun, unclaimed and unafraid, but even the sun casts shadows. The darkness. Teach where Luffy's laughter brings comfort, Teach's grin brings fear. Where the sun heals, the darkness devours. And yet, in that consumption, there is truth. Marshall D. Teach does not smile because he is happy. He smiles because he understands the lie of perfection. He knows that no world built on light alone can survive. He is the counterweight, the reminder, the wound that makes healing real. While Luffy's power frees bodies, Teach's power frees truth. He exposes what the world hides. He rips the masks off gods and kings alike. He forces humanity to see its ugliness, and because only when you see the dark can you truly appreciate the dawn, they are not opposites. They are corrections. The sun breaks the chains. The darkness breaks the illusions. Together, they are what Xebec foresaw, the storm that cannot be controlled. The storm, the will of D, the D are not the chosen few. They are the chosen moment, a rhythm that rises when the world forgets to breathe. They are the natural consequence of stagnation, the proof that no order can suppress curiosity forever. From Joy Boy to Gold D. Roger, from Xebec to Luffy and Teach, the thread has never been about blood. It has been about decision. The decision to live in truth, even when it costs everything. The decision to stand, laugh, and fall, without asking permission. And now, the D have reached the point of no return. The sun burns brighter than ever. The darkness grows heavier than before, and the sky cannot contain them both. The gods watch from their golden cages, trembling behind centuries of silence. Because for the first time since the Void Century, they do not know which side the sea will choose. They only know that the sea has chosen to move. The final choice. There is no prophecy of victory. There is no promise of peace. There is only the question, Rox D. Xebec carved into the bones of history. When the sun meets the darkness, will humanity kneel or laugh? It is not the fruit that decides. It is not the gods. It is not fate. It is us. The D were never meant to rule. They were meant to remind us that life is not obedience, it is motion. That freedom is not given, it is remembered. That laughter is not noise. It is the sound of the soul refusing to die. The storm is not coming to destroy the world. It is coming to wake it. When Luffy's laughter meets Teach's hunger, the heavens will fracture. The seas will boil, the thrones will crumble, but the silence, that sacred, suffocating silence that the gods built to protect themselves, will finally break. And from that silence, something new will be born. Not divine, not perfect, but real, a world where laughter and fear share the same table, where light and shadow walk side by side, where freedom is not a prize, it is the price. The legacy of Rox, D. Xebec history, calls him a villain. But history is written by survivors, not witnesses, and those who truly watched him knew the truth. He did not want to destroy the world. He wanted to show it to itself. He knew that the gods' greatest fear was not rebellion, it was honesty. Because once you see the truth, you can never go back to worshiping lies. He understood that neither light nor darkness should win, that the true victory is the storm itself, the eternal dance between what is seen and what is hidden. And so, even in death, his will persisted. Through laughter and shadow, through Luffy and Teach, through every D that refuses to kneel, because he was not just a pirate. He was the question the universe could never answer. Who decides what it means to be free? When the final battle comes, when the sun roars and the darkness grins, remember this. It was Xebec who set the stage. It was his storm that brought the world here. And it will be his laughter echoing through the thunder when the gods finally fall silent. Because the D do not die, they return. Over and over. Each time the world forgets what freedom sounds like. And this time, when the storm passes, the world will not be the same. The gods will fade. The lies will collapse. And the sea will sing the song that began before heaven learned to whisper. A song of laughter. A song of hunger. A song of will. The sun smiles. The darkness grins. The storm laughs. And the gods finally listen, and so the storm continues to move. Across time. Across bloodlines. Across every smile that dares to exist beneath the gaze of false gods. Rox D. Xebec may have fallen in the pages of history, but his question, his will, lives on through every D that still stands, laughing in the face of the impossible, because the truth can be buried. But it can never be silenced. And when the sun and the darkness finally meet again, the world will remember the name that even the heavens tried to forget. Rox D. Xebec, the man who wanted to steal the power of the gods, only to give it back to mankind. And maybe, just maybe, that was his plan all along. This was the theory. I'm Mr. Peace. And until the next video, keep your eyes on the horizon. because the storm of the D is far from over.